Hello students, I am Gunjan Malik Manocha, Assistant Professor, Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak. Welcome to EPG Pathshala. We are studying the paper Managing Culture and Diversity, and today we will study the module Cross-Cultural Management. The learning outcomes of this module will be, by the end of this module, students will be able to understand the concept and the relevance of cross-cultural management in a business organization. They will get familiar with the strategies of managing cross-cultural differences in an organization. So let's start with introduction. The technological achievements of the present era have brought people closer together as the world is becoming a global village in a true sense. People from different parts of the world are working together, and in spite of the cultural backgrounds, they are communicating with each other. Cultural diversity deals with cultural differences within the nation. The way in which the things are done in one culture may not hold good for another culture. Further, the same activity performed in two cultures may convey different meanings and generate different results. Dealing with people from unlike cultural backgrounds, it requires knowing the cultural diversities. For instance, what we say and what we should avoid saying, how to communicate, the way we deal with them, and to be aware of the cultural taboos, because what is accepted in one culture might be unacceptable in another culture. Obviously, managing people across different cultures form a part of the cross-cultural management. To effectively manage an organization, the cross-cultural issues must be understood, they must be interpreted, and as well as managed effectively to harvest the benefits. Well, a very good example of that is Hewlett-Packard, HP operations. Now, HP proclaims and demands that cultural diversity gives it competitive advantages and strengths. Due to diversity, HP gets the best creative solutions and is able to be more innovative with the divergent ideas they get from people across the cultures. Wherever HP operates, it observes the local culture prevailing in that country. Globalization gives a unique opportunity of operating in different countries, with employees of different cultures in a particular unit and so forth. Cultural diversity should never be viewed as a menace. Analytical thinking, it helps to convert the threat into an opportunity. The prime necessity in a global company at any stage of globalization is basically managing the culture. Now, what is culture? Culture includes norms which are based on the learning attitudes, the values and the beliefs. Culture is also the moral, the social and the behavioral norms of an organization, which is again based on the beliefs, the attitudes and priority of its employees. Culture is a set of values, beliefs, languages and norms that guide the human behavior in a country. Well, Mondi in 2009 said that culture is a learned behavior that develops as the individual grows from the childhood to the adulthood. In India, religions and the religious beliefs, they are additional detriments of culture. Asian culture norms promote loyalty and teamwork among citizens working in corporate or the organizations. Hence, it becomes very important for a manager to understand the cultural differences present in any organization. Levels at which a culture works. Culture basically works at two levels, national level and organizational level. As you can see, the national cultures are acquired during childhood and these national cultures are stable. The underlying values of national culture remain same and the afterward changes that occur are basically the practices. Now, at organizational level, organizational cultures do not remain same in all the corporates. They fluctuate from one company to another company, even in the same country. Now, Trompenaars in 1993 identified and described four types of organizational cultures: family, Eiffel Tower, guided missile and incubator. Now let's have a detailed explanation of these four types. Types of organizational cultures. The first culture, which is family. In family type of organizational culture, there is a strong emphasis on the hierarchy and orientation to the person. The second is Eiffel Tower. There is a strong emphasis on the hierarchy as the tower and orientation to the task. Third is guided missile. In this type of organizational culture, there is a strong emphasis on equality in the workplace and orientation to the task. And fourth is incubator. In incubator, there is again a strong emphasis on equality and personal orientation. Now, in the previous slide, we discussed the types of organizational culture, and this slide shows the diagram for the same. The Trompenaars Multicultural Company. These are the 4 types of organizational cultures: family, Eiffel Tower, guided missile, and incubator. Now, levels at which a culture works. The first level is occupational level. Now, occupational culture also plays a very important role, and it comes between the national and the organizational cultures. Second is gender level. The gender differences are recognized within the same culture. There is what can be called as a men's culture that differs from a women's culture. Technically, males and females have the ability to perform the same tasks at the workplace, but they do not respond in the same way to the symbols used in the society. Now, let's discuss the characteristics of a company's culture. The diagram says the first characteristics is there should be clarity of the mission statement. Second, employee engagement and commitment. Third is freedom to use discretion. Next is extent of empowerment. Then integrity and cohesion among the employees in the workplace. Another important characteristic is the interpersonal trust and relationships. And a good company's culture has effective leadership styles. It has structured and documented systems and processes. Then it should have performance-based compensation, reward and incentive system. And last but not the least, it should have customer orientation. Some more characteristics of a company's culture are internal and external communications, commitment to learning and skill development, laying emphasis on recruiting and retaining the outstanding employees. There should be a high degree of adaptability to changes. A company's culture should define the accountability standards, and it should encourage and demonstrate support for innovation. Inter-country differences in managing international projects. The challenges of managing human resource activities abroad don't just stem from the distances involved in the countries. The bigger issue is dealing with the cultural, the political, the legal and the economic differences among the countries and their people. The result is that what works in one country might fail in another country. Cultural factor, economic system, legal and industrial relation factor, cultural factors. Cultural differences mean people abroad react differently to the same or the similar situations. Let's take an example. In one of the study of managers from Hong Kong, mainland China and the United States, US, the managers tended to be most concerned with getting the job done. The Chinese managers were more concerned with maintaining a harmonious environment. Hong Kong managers fall between these extremes. Several years ago, researchers surveyed the cultural values of managers in 62 countries, and they concluded that the countries differed among 4 cultural dimensions. Cultural dimensions: assertiveness. How much people in a society are expected to be tough, confrontational and competitive. The most assertive countries are Germany, Greece and United States, and the least assertive countries are Sweden, New Zealand and Switzerland. Second dimension is future orientation. As it is very clear from the name, the level of importance of the society attaches to future oriented behaviors like planning or investing in the future. The most future oriented cultures are Switzerland and Singapore, and the least future oriented countries or the cultures are Russia, Argentina and Poland. Another dimension of culture, performance orientation. Performance orientation means the importance of performance improvement and excellence in the society. The most performance-oriented cultures are Singapore, Hong Kong, New Zealand and United States, and the least performance-oriented countries are Russia, Argentina and Greece. Another very important dimension of culture is human orientation. The extent to which a society encourages and rewards people for being fair, altruistic and kind. Highest on this humane orientation, Malaysia, Ireland and Philippines, and lowest on the human orientation, Germany, Spain and France. Cultural factors. Cultural differences like these help in shaping the human resource policies and practices that work best in a particular country. For example, some argue that Americans' emphasis on individualism, that is, on standing on one's own feet, helps to explain why there are fewer constraints on American human resource managers. For instance, in terms of firing employees, European HR managers are much more restricted than the American ones. For instance, with respect to the notice they must give workers before firing them, how much severance pay the employees gets, and the complexity of the legal processes involved in dismissing workers. Similarly, both union membership and union influences are much higher in Europe as compared to US. The B is economic systems. Similarly, differences in economic systems between the countries also translate into differences in inter-country HR practices. Now, labor costs also vary widely. For example, the hourly compensation costs in US dollars for production workers, it ranged from $2.75 in Mexico to $6.43 in Taiwan and $23.82 in United States, $27.10 in UK and $34.21 in Germany. So there is so much of variation. Then the legal and the industrial relation factors. Global legal differences can also blindside even the most sophisticated managers and the companies. After spending billions of dollars expanding into Germany, the Walmart managers were surprised to learn that Germany's commercial laws, they discouraged advertising that involves competitive price comparisons. So they soon had to leave Germany. Cross-cultural management, international companies and individuals, they must evaluate their business as well as the personal practices to ensure that their behavior fits with the national norms. In addition to being a part of national culture, people are simultaneously part of other cultures like the professional or the organizational ones. Further, they may have more than one national culture. We all know that culture is a complex phenomena. So the cross-cultural environment of a global company is capable of producing both negative as well as positive results for it. For instance, the organizations that keep a culturally diverse workforce, they may achieve better creativity, they may achieve better productiveness, or they can also have wider business opportunities. But the same cultural differences, it may also act as a stumbling block to the success of global HR operations due to the communication bottlenecks. In all these, the effectiveness of communication in the cross-cultural environment makes the critical difference between the success or the failure. Cross-cultural management focuses on reducing the cross-cultural differences and the barriers and creating cross-cultural awareness in order to have better communication and better cooperation at the workplace. Now, cross-cultural management describes organizational behavior within the countries and the cultures, and it also compares organizational behavior across the different countries and cultures. Now, it is the toughest job of a cross-cultural manager to keep his employees involved in all the tasks by keeping their differences aside. He has to keep all those differences aside. Now, this will not only help in retaining the employees, but also to stay in the organization for a longer period of time. Hence, it is very necessary to recognize that what is the business culture, what are the management values, and what are the methodologies across the globe. To reduce the cross-cultural related troubles and barriers, global managers, must be well trained. They must be well trained to do what? To understand, to acknowledge and to adapt to the differences in the cultures. Since companies operating at the global level continuously need people who can operate in cross-cultural environment, the IHRM, that is International Human Resource Management, should focus on the aspects like cultural awareness, multiple communication techniques and styles, language familiarization, which is very important, and application of relevant technology necessary for the successful management of the diverse work groups of employees in cross-cultural environment of the company. Now, the International HR Department can organize the cross-cultural training to expose the employees to the cultures in a planned manner to enable them to acquire the functional and the communication skills which are essential for the cross-cultural environment. Now, what is cross-cultural training? Cross-cultural training should result in the expatriate learning both content and the skills that will improve the interactions between the host country individuals by reducing the misunderstandings and the inappropriate behaviors. Culture management elements. Now, a company striving to manage culture needs to pay attention to 4 dimensions. What are those dimensions? According to Parikh 2008, those dimensions are structural elements, processes, strategy and tactics to be employed. Culture change must be built into the system such that the new culture becomes that part of the organization. Now, this necessitates paying attention concurrently to the processes underlying the structural elements and also the plan of action, that is strategy. Both the processes and strategies must be broad and clearly thought out. The strategy must be split into specific action steps which we call tactics. Now, the 4-fold SPST model emphasized and proposed by Parikh 2008 helps to smoothen out the process of culture management. Now, let's discuss this 4-fold SPST model. Now, SPST stands for structural elements, P stands for processes, S stands for strategy and T stands for tactics. Now, this table clearly indicates that there are 7 things which are included in the structural elements. First is stable structure, temporary system, linkage bondage mechanisms, information system, rewards, regular budget and guidelines. Processes includes incremental planning, action research approach, modeling, process awareness and orientation, counseling, organizational norms. Strategy, it includes anchoring in and using strength, sensitivity to stone walls, competency building, critical concentration, developing institutions, sanction and support and the system ownership. And the last, that is tactics, which includes prepare in advance, one step at a time, prepare for the journey, go together, stop and review the progress, keep up the spirit, that is we can call it reinforcement, and keep going, that is perseverance. Global staffing. Now, let's discuss the staffing philosophies for international enterprises. The first is ethnocentric approach. Ethnocentric approach says the home country practice prevails with this approach. Headquarters from the home country makes the key decisions. The employees from the home country, they hold the most important jobs and the subsidiaries follow the home country resource management practice. So, the home country dominates. Second is polycentric approach. Each subsidiary manages on a local basis. A local employee heads a subsidiary because the headquarters managers are not considered to have adequate local knowledge. Subsidiaries usually develop human resource management practices locally. So, this states that the local employee plays a more important role. Then we have geocentric approach. Now, the company that applies the global integrated business strategy manages and staffs employees on a global basis. These people constitute a mobile base of managers who are used in a variety of facilities as the need arises. Second is classification of international staffing. The international staffing we have classified into 4 things. First is expatriates, second is host country nationals, third is locals, and fourth is the third country national. Now, who is an expatriate? Expatriate are the non-citizens of the countries in which they are working. Host country nationals are the citizens of the countries in which the multinational company has its headquarters. Thus, we can say it is the parent country. Locals, also known as host country nationals, work for the country abroad and are citizens of the countries where they are working. Third country nationals are the citizens of the country other than the parent or the host country. Third point of global staffing is strategies for managing cross-cultural differences. We have designed 3 strategies for managing cross-cultural differences. The first is intercultural transitions, second is cultural synergy, and third is cultural intelligence. So let's first discuss the intercultural transitions. Intercultural transitions are the need of the day for global organizations. Highly effective corporate cultures have 3 people-related key traits. The 3 people-related key traits are being displayed with 3 different colors. The first is vision, mission, and values among employees. Second is understanding interdependent roles, and third is aligning employee attitudes. The first is enterprise needs to percolate the vision and mission to all the employees. The management must take adequate care to ensure that the vision and the mission statements are unambiguous, that is, they are clear. Understanding interdependent roles. Enterprises need to promote interpersonal understanding, keeping cultural differences aside. A strong urge to achieve team goals is likely to eliminate or reduce the diversity which arises from cultural differences. And the third is aligning employee attitudes. Well, enterprises have to initiate to establish strong alignment of the employee attitudes and the strategic goals and objectives. Second, cultural synergy. Now, what is cultural synergy? Cultural synergy is derived from the Greek word meaning working together. Cooperative and combined action where the objective is to increase effectiveness. Synergy is the cooperative and combined action from 2 or more relevant cultural sources which produces mutually acceptable and beneficial results for participants. This powerful concept represents a dynamic process which involves joint action in which the total effect is greater than the sum of effects when acting independently, involves adapting and learning, does not signify a compromise, yet in true synergy nothing is given up or lost, creates an integrated solution, and develops the potential of the members by facilitating the release of team energies. Synergy begins between the colleagues, then extends to their organizations, and finally to the countries. And the third point is cultural intelligence. Well, in order to live within a specific culture, the individual is supposed to adapt the differences in that culture. According to Peterson, 2004, cultural intelligence is the ability to exhibit certain behaviors, including skills and qualities, which are culturally tuned to the attitudes and value of others. Cultural intelligence covers some other areas also, like linguistic intelligence, spatial intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, and interpersonal intelligence. Now, let's explain all these types of intelligences. First is linguistic intelligence. It is helpful to learn about the customer's native language, and using international business English can increase effectiveness when communicating with the persons of other cultures. What is spatial intelligence? It involves the space used during meetings and introductions. Intrapersonal intelligence, it involves awareness of one's own culture style in order to make adjustments to the international counterparts. And interpersonal intelligence it includes the ability to understand other people and their motivations. Summary. Cultural diversity deals with cultural differences within a nation. The way in which things are done in one culture may not hold good for another. Globalization gives a unique opportunity of operating in different countries with employees of diverse cultures in a particular unit. The prime necessity in a global company at any stage of globalization is basically managing the culture. Culture is a learned behavior that develops as individuals grow from childhood to adulthood. There are certain levels at which a culture can work. Those levels are the national level, organizational level, occupational level, and even the gender level. Major challenge in managing international projects is basically the inter-country differences. The critical issue in dealing with cultural, political, legal, and economic differences among the countries and their people. The organizations that keep a culturally diverse workforce, they may achieve better creativity. These are the benefits. They get better productiveness. They also have wider business opportunity. But the same cultural differences, they can also act as a stumbling block to the success of the global HR operations, and the reason can be the communication bottlenecks. Cross-cultural management focuses on reducing those differences and barriers and creating cross-cultural awareness in order to have better communication and cooperation at the workplace. Now, a company which is striving to manage culture, it needs to pay attention to 4 elements. The first is the structural element, second is the processes, third is strategy, and the fourth is tactics to be employed. Intercultural transitions are the need of the day for the global organizations. Highly effective corporate cultures have 3 people-related key traits: vision, mission, and values among the employees. Understanding interdependent roles and aligning employee attitudes. Thank you.